You are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. Today is May 26th, 2024, and this is episode 279 of Lighthearted. We have three segments in today's episode: an update on a very historic lighthouse in New Jersey, a look at a fascinating faux lighthouse in Connecticut, and a conversation about a unique lighthouse that's for sale in Massachusetts. I'm flying solo again today with no co-host. I do plan to get back to having co-hosts for most episodes, but at the moment I'm playing catch-up after a 12-day trip down the coast as far as Maryland. On the trip, I drove 1,767 miles through parts of 6 states. I visited 24 lighthouses and climbed 16 of them for a total of more than 1,200 steps, as I figure it. I also visited 2 lightships and 4 maritime museums. And I recorded 12 interviews, including the one with Tom Hoffman at Sandy Hook, New Jersey that was posted last week. It was a great trip, but I do not recommend driving into Baltimore during rush hour when an Orioles game is about to start, and I definitely don't recommend driving from Maryland to Connecticut during Friday afternoon rush hour. We're starting today's episode with a chat with Kevin Ferias, owner of Borden Flats Lighthouse in southeastern Massachusetts. Kevin has been on the podcast before, and Borden Flats is a place that's very familiar to me. It's located near the mouth of the Taunton River in Mount Hope Bay between Somerset and Fall River, Massachusetts. It was bought in 2011 by Nick Korstad under the guidelines of the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act, and Nick fixed it up and opened it to the public for overnight stays. In 2018, it was bought by Kevin Ferias, who has continued to operate it as a very successful B&B. It's now for sale, which is what I discussed with Kevin in this interview. So let's listen to that now. I'm speaking today with Kevin Ferias, who is the owner of the beautiful Borden Flats Lighthouse. Kevin, I interviewed you before for the podcast a while back, and it's good to talk to you again. So first of all, thank you for doing this, Kevin.
It's absolutely great to be here as always. Really, enjoy all your podcasts and everything you're doing for all of us passionate lighthouse lovers.
Lighthouse lovers, that's a good name for it. I usually say lighthouse nuts, and I include myself in that category. But well, you're welcome. Thank you for the kind words. So I want to mention also, as we're starting here, that we are recording this both video and audio. It is going to be part of the next episode of my podcast, the U.S. Lighthouse Society podcast, but it's also going to be posted as a YouTube video. So if people are listening to this, I recommend that they check out the YouTube video as well, which will have some visuals that obviously they won't get in the listening to the audio podcast. So I just want people to aware that it's both. And I'll also mention that for people watching in the video, the background I have behind me is the view from the top of Borden Flats Lighthouse. I was lucky enough several years ago now, in fact, it might be even 10 years ago, lucky enough to stay there for the night when Nick Korstad, the previous owner, was there. So it was a great evening and great sunset, as you can see. So let me ask you, Kevin, I know we talked about some of this before on the podcast, but it's been a while. And for people who didn't listen before, first of all, can you tell how you came to buy the lighthouse in the first place?
Well, that's probably the most interesting part of the story. As you had mentioned, Nick Korstad, the nation's most renowned lighthouse rehabilitator, I feel, award-winning, actually, when he purchased it from the government at auction in 2010. He spent 7 long, hard years rehabbing this lighthouse and did an absolutely gorgeous job. And it just so happened that in the year of 2017, it was my wife and I's 25th anniversary, and I was looking for something very unique to do. And at the time, we're not too far from the beautiful Rose Island Lighthouse down in Newport. We're only about 20 miles away. I had not even realized that Borden Flats Lighthouse existed as an overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I only live 7 miles from it. So the most ironic part of the story is only thinking that Rose Island had overnight accommodations. I did Google, call them, and unfortunately, they were booked solid all summer and did not have our anniversary date available. But
Mm-hmm.
what's very strange is in the Google search, the number 2 listing came up as Borden Flats Lighthouse with a phone number. I thought that was really strange. Called the number. Sure enough, Nick Korstad answered the phone, and he said, "Yes, I've just spent 7 years renovating it, and I opened it this summer for overnight guests.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I do have August 24th available." So we were ecstatic. We went out. We had an absolutely beautiful August evening. The minute I walked into the place, I just completely fell in love with it. We had a wonderful night. I became instantly friendly with Nick, and I am by trade a photographer and a video producer. And so we had agreed that I would come back and completely photograph the lighthouse for him and his website in trade for a future night. And I would say about 6, 7 months later, in the middle of winter, during a snowstorm, mind you, my phone rang and it was Nick. And he said, "Kevin, I'm really sorry. I won't need those photos after all. I'm selling the lighthouse. I'm now moving on to my next project, which was and is Big Bay Lighthouse up in Michigan. A
Yep.
little plug for Big Bay."
I've stayed there too. It's a fantastic place.
Absolutely. And, I myself, we went up there. Nick invited us up for a weekend, and just breathtaking.
Yeah.
So, and so it was so ironic that this all came down, and he was basically had put it on the market and said, "Kevin, my interest has been mostly from private individuals wanting it as a summer home."
Mm-hmm.
And I did not spend 7 years renovating this for it to go into private hands, and I so preferred it be open to the public. And you're the only one I know that has the passion to do this. And we did not have the finances. Both of our kids were in college at the time, and I didn't sleep for 5 months, Jeremy, dreaming about what if.
Yeah.
But after that 5-month period, Nick was just like, "Please, we got to keep this open to the public, and you're the one to do it." And so he was very generous, and we worked out a wonderful deal. And within 3 days of that phone call, I owned Borden Flats Light.
Mm-hmm.
And I say ironic because I often, over the last 7 years of ownership, constantly wonder, what if
Mm-hmm.
Rose Island Lighthouse did have a reservation for us that
Well, luckily they're usually booked at least a year ahead.
exactly. So so it's just as I'm a firm believer of everything happens for a reason. So, and it's been the best 7 years that I've had owning and operating it as not only a historic lighthouse, but of course it's overnight accommodation.
Mm-hmm. Nick, regular listeners to the podcast would be familiar with Nick Korstad. He's been on a few times, and he's a really good friend. He's a great guy, and I'll mention that he's also my successor as president of the American Lighthouse Foundation, and he is perfect for that role as well. So, is the overnight stay operation still going strong at this point?
Absolutely gangbusters. I am so thrilled that since day one taking over, it exploded. We have been completely sold out 7 nights a week from April to November for the last 7 years, and we are already on mark to sell out for 2025 as well. And this is, mind you, with zero advertising, none, all word of mouth, referrals, and just our lowly little website.
Yeah.
So that's what fascinates me. So many folks come from all over the world. Last year we had Hong Kong, Spain, Italy, France, England, Australia. And I think because of its uniqueness and it's sort of one of a kind type of offshore situation, people come from all over, and it's a no-brainer. It's so funny. They leave and they hug us and love the experience. And of course, as you can imagine, it's a bucket list item for so many.
Yeah. Well, there are a number of lighthouses you can stay at, but this is very unusual, being an offshore caisson type lighthouse. There's one in Maine, Goose Rocks, that has somewhat of an overnight program, but I can't think of any others of this
Yeah,
type
Goose
anywhere.
Rock would be the only other one, and I think they changed their operation post COVID,
Yeah,
where I think they were open publicly,
yeah.
and now I think they offer the overnights in a different scenario. But yeah, we were the only two in the world that from the research I've done,
Yeah.
and like you said, a caisson spark plug lighthouse where all the other accommodations or most thereof folks would stay in the keeper house
Yeah.
adjacent, where for us, you sleep right inside the tower and right underneath the actual lantern room.
Yeah. So, in these last few years since you've owned the lighthouse, what are some of the most enjoyable aspects of that?
Yeah, it's funny. The minute I get on the launch boat, and of course, I still work my full time career and still, you know, own and manage and operate the lighthouse. But once I get on that boat and I start heading out, and it's really only a 2 or 3 minute ride, it's just a different feeling. And everything that I do on the lighthouse, as far as renovations, rehab, maintenance, and stuff, is just it's so rewarding to just give back to this piece of maritime history. And you just know it, and you just keep thinking that after 143 years of keepers, and obviously passing down that honor, so to speak, of keeping the light, you only hope that it can continue the same way into generation upon generation, and let folks come and really enjoy what it's like to be a true light keeper.
Right. Yeah. So why have you decided to put it up for sale?
Well, very bittersweet. I'm actually going to be 65 this year, and my wife.
You're just a baby. I have to interrupt you for a second. I'm a little bit ahead of you, but
Um, but
yeah.
yeah, my wife and I have been discussing, retiring fairly soon. And of course, as I said, I'm juggling a very active full-time career as well as the lighthouse, and it's draining. It takes up probably 70 hours a week. Um, and my wife has finally convinced me that it's time to stop and smell the roses. Um, it's like I said, it's bittersweet because I expected to just own this forever, but there's an aspect of work. I do all the maintenance myself completely, along with my assistant lightkeeper Paul, and I just figured it's time to let someone else enjoy this, so that I could kind of sail off into the sunset and go retire. I've had a couple of minor health issues that my wife is concerned about as well. So I thought, okay, now's a good time, and let's put it out there and start the search for that next wonderful lighthouse keeper and owner
Hmm.
to take over the helm.
Yeah. By the way, for people listening and not viewing this, I just want to mention you're wearing a shirt that has a logo of the lighthouse on it, and it also says Kevin Lightkeeper. So that's great. I enjoyed seeing that. So let me ask you, what is the selling price? And part two of that is, what exactly does the buyer get in the sale?
Well, after really researching and talking with some experts, um, I was told that at this point, the lighthouse, with the extremely successful overnight business attached to it, was probably worth about 1.5. But I don't know. I think that's a little bit high in my opinion, and I want to make it a little bit more attractive for that next owner. But our real estate agent, et cetera, has convinced us to put it out there for 1.2, and let's see where it goes. I will be honest to say that so far we've had nothing but offers from private individuals that would love to purchase the lighthouse as their own like summer residence or summer getaway, which would kill me, because that would completely nullify our, both Nick and I's 14 years of working towards keeping Borden Flats as a wonderful overnight destination. Obviously, they'd want it as their private entity, and it would all go away. So I am holding out and hoping that we do find the next lighthouse enthusiast and lover, and again, along with the actual structure itself, we have a 22-foot launch boat that would obviously that we utilize to service the lighthouse, of course. So that would come along with it, and then all of the antiques and furnishings that you see inside. I have a few kind of personal little knick-knacky lighthouse things that I've collected over the years that I would probably take with me. But for the most part, it's all inclusive. We have 5 levels of living inside the lighthouse. And so all the furniture, appliances, and everything else, it would actually be probably the easiest turnkey transition possible. As I have mentioned to those who have shown interest in keeping it as is, I have said that, living so close, and of course, my assistant lightkeeper living close, that they get us, so to speak, with the package, and only because I would be more than happy to remain and help the new owner in the transition, get it going, and of course, be there if they ever needed us. I don't want to walk away and forget about this beautiful place in my life. So besides the structure itself and everything else inside, and of course the incredibly successful overnight business, that's what the next buyer would be able to get it in the price. Yeah.
Let me ask you, do they get the sunrises and sunsets along with that too?
Wonderful sunrises and sunsets, and again, it's, as it's situated there in the middle of the bay, and so it's weather permitting, obviously. I have been blessed to photograph some of the most amazing sunsets with the lighthouse, and that's probably what most of our guests really, it's not often that folks who are on vacation set their alarms for 5 a.m. to try to get up and witness the sunrise. But yeah, its location is perfect, where you get both sunrises and sunsets year round.
Yeah, that's the thing about being in a round lighthouse. You're looking out in all directions. Yeah, that's great. What would you say, if you could say one thing right now to someone who is considering buying the lighthouse, what would you say to them?
Wow, I would say that obviously it fell into my lap, and I never realized how rewarding it would be, and just the hospitality aspect of it, because all of our guests that come are so well. First of all, most of them are booked a year and a half or more in advance, so they are so excited to be there. You would experience not only being part of this wonderful history, but you would experience making so many people happy. Thank goodness we, in the 7 years, we have never had one single complaint, nothing but 5-star reviews. People just leave so well. First of all, it's obviously, as you know, it's a very relaxing, peaceful experience out there. We are off the grid, and you just kind of say goodbye to the rest of the world and all your troubles, and head out there and relax. And so I think that as an owner, the good thing is probably 95% of the work is done. Now it's just maintenance, painting, and and I'm always fussing around. Oh, there's a little piece of rust there, pop, 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 that kind of thing. Nothing majorly. Nick did it all. thank goodness, and we've just been maintaining it.
Yeah.
It's not like it would be a ton of maintenance work and things like that. And of course, the business part of it is just turnkey. We have a online digital reservation system. It's all done by itself. I get an email every time there's a reservation made. So it's very, very easily turnkey for
Hmm.
whoever is going to take it on. And again, like I said, we're there to kind of take those first jitters away, so to speak, and we'll also assist any way we can with the new ownership.
Yeah. I was just going to say that it was certainly built to last. It's like 1881, is that correct? Was the year it was built? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and it withstood the 1938 hurricane, among other storms. So it's again, they knew what they were doing when they built it, and
It is
yeah,
amazing. Yeah, and as we give our tour, for every guest, we have about an hour-long history tour upon check-in that we take them throughout the whole lighthouse, and I show them how at the base of the brick lighthouse is 2 foot thick, the walls, and of course they taper as they go up. But yeah, it's been built correctly. There's no doubt about it. And like you said, to survive all those storms, and knock on wood, she is still stronger than ever, and I can't see her lasting another 142 years for sure.
yeah. So how can people find out more about all this?
Well, we obviously have our regular website for reservations and things like that, and that's bordenflats.com. But I also created, as far as for the sale of the lighthouse, its own website, and it's www.lighthouse, the number 4, sale.com, lighthouse4sale.com.
Yeah,
And it's got all the information, photos, and things like that on the website. So,
yeah,
or obviously, if you go to our regular website, our email is there, my phone number is there. So we have yet to start our official listing with a real estate, company. We have negotiated already with Sotheby's international real estate, and I felt that would be the smartest thing to do, because I really feel this lighthouse has got world appeal,
hmm,
and of
yeah,
course the reach is international. So I am I am holding off signing on and officially listing this, with the hope that at some point we're able to find that perfect lighthouse enthusiast that would want to be able to get involved and purchase the lighthouse. Because I really have a feeling that once it goes completely public worldwide, the majority of the folks that are going to be interested are probably for private usage.
yeah.
And again, that would just destroy me to have to disintegrate this wonderful overnight keepers program that we've worked so hard to establish over the years.
Yeah, I concur completely. I mean, yeah, but the preservation of the lighthouse is one thing, and that's important too. But yeah, you and Nick have laid such a great groundwork for this overnight business that I really, really hope it continues. So I hope the right lighthouse lover, a lighthouse nut, is watching or listening to us right now. There's certainly a good chance of that. So I hope you'll be hearing from somebody. I'll be following it closely. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Kevin, and this is very much a pleasure. So I wish you good luck in all your endeavors, and we'll be talking again, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, Jeremy, very much.
Once again, check out lighthouseforsale.com. That's lighthouse, the number 4, sale.com for all the details. I have visited Borden Flats Lighthouse a couple of times before restoration and after. Kevin and Nick Korstad, the previous owner, have done a fantastic job of renovating and furnishing the place, and it's one of very few lighthouses of its type in the world where the public can stay overnight. Whoever buys it is very lucky. Next, we're going to listen to an interview I recorded last week on my trip down the coast about East Point Lighthouse in New Jersey. East Point Lighthouse in Heislerville on Delaware Bay at the mouth of the Maurice River began service in 1849 and is the second oldest lighthouse in the state of New Jersey. It consists of a lantern on the roof of a two-story keeper's dwelling. The Maurice River Historical Society has managed the property for many years and has restored it beautifully. A dune system that was protecting the lighthouse was breached by a storm in March 2019, putting the site in grave danger. The Historical Society continues to fight the erosion problem, as well as an entanglement with the lease on the property from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP. I first interviewed Nancy Patterson, president of the Maurice River Historical Society, back in late 2019. Last week, I had the pleasure of visiting East Point Lighthouse for the first time, and I got to speak with Nancy in person. So let's listen to that conversation now. I'm here at the East Point Lighthouse in New Jersey for the first time ever, part of my whirlwind trip down the coast here, and thrilled to be here. With me is Historical Society President Nancy Patterson, who was last on this podcast in late 2019. We're just saying it's hard to believe. It's almost 5 years ago. And I'm really pleased to be here with you, Nancy. Thanks so much for doing this today.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're extremely welcome. As I said, we talked in 2019, and there was a lot happening then. There's a lot happening now. I'd like to talk a bit about what has happened or hasn't happened, in some cases maybe, since then. How's the erosion control situation going?
Sadly, it's still a major concern. The state did install part of a geotube system. And for those who don't know what that is basically a giant series of sandbags, tubular sandbags. Unfortunately, though, that the project was not only a bit underscaled for what was needed, but also put way too close to the shoreline. They're usually further back. Normally what happens is they build basically a sandbag base, and then they fill it with, on top dress it with sand, and then plant it like it's a natural dune. Well, the ours is so close to the shoreline that the sand, they only did one line of tubes instead of the usual three, and then it washed off right away. So we have sand gone and water coming over through the cracks. And then, unfortunately, they didn't even finish this small-scale project, and so water comes in the front. So basically, we have water coming over, through, and in, and then it gets stuck here and can't drain back out. So it's a bit of a nightmare, basically.
So nothing has been done since then?
Correct, except for more erosion.
And what are the DEP officials, what are they saying at this point, if anything?
They're not going to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
They've made that very, very clear, sadly.
Okay. Well, I want to get back to that. We'll return to talk a little bit more about that. But also, another situation is that after decades of leasing the lighthouse to the Maurice River Historical Society, the state announced last year that the lease was going up for bid, which I'm sure was quite a surprise. So what's the latest news on that?
Yeah, the latest news is it's been close to 4 years, if not 4 years, that the long-term lease expired. And first they told us they weren't going to offer a lease at all and only offered us a license, which basically has no protections. There's no lease law protections. It's just very temporary. Mm-hmm. So we've been functioning under that, a series of extensions of a license. But thankfully, with some political help, we have the help from Congressman Van Drew. He encouraged strongly the DEP to actually offer a lease. Mm-hmm. But to everyone's surprise and horror, they didn't actually directly offer it to the society that's taken care of and actually restored the building from a completely burned out shell to the beautiful restored building that it is today, functional lighthouse. Mm-hmm. Instead of offering it to that society, they literally put it out for bid and made us bid for it. So we had to learn how to fill out an RFP and go through the paperwork of all of that, plus maintain the lighthouse and open it to the public, and all with a small historical society. Yeah. So it was quite just maddening, honestly. It was very frustrating and discouraging that they would treat us that way, for one. Yeah. And may I add also that we're the only lighthouse in New Jersey that's been treated that way. The rest of them were given the renewed lease. No one was given a license, and none of them have ever been put up for RFP. Yeah. They were given to the society.
So what is the very latest on this situation?
The very latest is that they They offered the lease. They offered the lease, but in the lease, not only do we still have to have all the full burden and responsibility for maintaining and restoring and caring and opening the lighthouse, the expense of opening to the public and all of that, and all the maintenance, not just a little bit of it, but all of it. But they're going to charge us rent on top of that. So basically, that's bankruptcy. You can't, a small society, they're not, these are not money-making things. They're money pits, really. And to care for the property and then pay them rent on top of that is ridiculous.
You're doing them a favor.
Right. And they reward us with I said, well, gee, does that mean you're really going to act like a real landlord? And if the heater breaks, I call you and you come fix it?
That's a good question.
They said, of course not. That, basically they said, oh, no, you're still responsible for everything. Yeah. But you're going to pay us rent also. And they did it in a way that it's actually a percentage off the top of all money that we bring in. So the more we make, the more we would pay them. So you really can't get ahead. Oh. So, and thankfully they backed off on that a little bit. They gave us a flat fee. And in the meantime, we really do have the evidence that they gave. I mean, it's Freedom of Information Act. I can get the lease that EPSI got when we should have gotten ours. They had the same lease from 1996 that we had. And in it, they were supposed to renew it for another 10 years. They renewed theirs, and they did not renew ours, and basically told us that they were no longer renewing, which, of course, is not true because they did. So Cape May has gotten theirs. I believe North Wildwood has probably gotten theirs. Anyway, we were definitely discriminated against, and I know that's a tough thing to say, but we have the evidence, and so... But it still hasn't made a difference. They still have that rent in the lease, and that's all they're offering so far. Yeah. The very latest up-to-date thing is that they say that they will deduct funds. They will deduct off the rent of things that we do to the building or grounds that they consider an improvement. Well, that's a catchword for a historical building because you technically don't improve it. You restore it. You don't add new things to a historic building. So when I saw the way it was worded, I was like, and at this point I'm kind of used to the game they play, so I was like, uh-oh. So we tested them on that, and I gave them our actual list of things that need to be done, the real list of maintenance things and things we want to restore or whatever. And I said, well, we need to know what you will actually approve that we get to do, because they're really hard to get approvals to do anything. We have to get approvals to do everything, and they don't give them. And then 2, we have to get approval for it to be a deduction. So that's trying to get 2 approvals per project from a government agency that doesn't give approvals. So I was nervous about that. Yeah. And rightly so. When I gave them their list, they brought it back with hardly anything being approved. I mean, things that were obvious, which you couldn't take as anything but an improvement, fixing things, and they didn't count them. So that's where we are. And they wanted more information, so I gave them more information on the projects that we thought we would do the quickest or the soonest. And we're waiting to hear back whether they'll include that. So, and they won't give pre-approvals. They won't tell us what's approved. Only what would be approved is a deduction. So it's a bit of a nightmare still. Here we are, years later, and we've been functioning month by month with these extensions, so it's extremely hard to plan anything. You don't know if we're going to be out by the end of the month. I mean, how do you plan? Every event or everybody that wants to come and see, I don't know what to tell them. So,
I feel for you.
It's a nightmare.
I really do, yeah. Let me ask you, I just saw a Facebook post you did. You said in that post that the New Jersey DEP's priority is to give in to erosion here on the southern Bayshore, which is in conflict with obviously your desire, the society's desire to preserve the lighthouse, keep it open. And I'm going to ask this, even though I think I know the answer. But do you think there's any kind of middle ground that can? Maybe that doesn't even. Maybe that's not possible in any case, no matter what the state does. But let me put it a different way. Do they want you to fail?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I can come to know, and I didn't come to that conclusion lightly. I mean, I have a lot of every move that they've made and haven't made, you can come to no conclusion. Yeah. The more successful we are here, and the more people who come visit, and the bigger our events get, and the more successful they are, and the more people hear about it, the more they push to make us fail. The more they make it harder. And that makes no sense to me. It took me forever to like admit that or realize it, because it makes no sense. Like, why in the world would they do that? You know, they should be thrilled that it's successful. We're saving a historic building and also serving the public in the process by, you know, having it be here for different events and educational purposes. And even environmental things. We do a lot of environmental education as well. And that's supposed to be their mission.
Right.
It doesn't seem to be either.
What about state historic officials? What's the name of their SHPO here?
Extremely. Every time I speak to somebody, they're so appreciative of what we're trying to do and what we are doing, but they don't seem to have any power to help us up against the DEP. Even the historic preservation, which is what the division is under the DEP. That's actually the historic preservation is under them. Oh. And even their division, you know, within the DEP doesn't have the power to really help us. And that's very sad.
Why does the DEP have such power over this?
To me, they seem like unchecked power. The only one that seems to have the power is the governor, because the governor appoints the commissioner, and that sets the tone for the DEP. That sets the whole agenda, I guess. And that's it. Other than that, they're unchecked. I mean, I have absolute evidence that they discriminated against us and lied to us, really. I know there's strong language, but that's what they did.
Well, that's what I was thinking. The governor and other state government, I'm sure
the power is in the governor's hands.
I'm sure you've appealed to the governor and others.
And he's ignoring all of our letters and phone calls. That we don't even get one of those little form letters back that acknowledging that we've contacted them. No one has gotten.
What about your state reps and people like that?
They get nowhere. I have I have Congressman Van Drew working constantly, and he's still, for 4 years, he's done what he said. He had tried to help us, and he's still trying. At this point, I don't even deal directly with it, because they bullied me so much. I don't speak directly to the DEP anymore. I call the congressman's office. They contact them on our behalf. That's how bad it's gotten. But he stayed with us the whole time. We have Senator Michael Testa, again, tried to do everything he could. We had all the locals, of course, you know, the county and the township and everybody, but we're just not strong enough. It needs to be the governor that changes things. And
when is the governor going to change?
Not soon enough. I think he's in for another 2 years.
Well, hang on till then, maybe, but it's
getting harder.
Yeah, it is. It really is getting harder in terms of the erosion situation.
It's twofold now at this point. I touched on it earlier with what's happening with the geotube. And I should say, in fairness, the geotube has helped break the waves. And that's important. You know, wave action, we'd be in trouble without it. But in a sense, it's created another problem. Because what happened is it cut off, this building used to be set so far back that it actually has a basement, which of course is full of water. It has 2 big sump pumps that are pumping the water out. And the problem is that the water that's pumped out can't drain anymore. The tubes now stop it. Oh. I mean, it had already filled in anyway after Hurricane Sandy, which of course they didn't let us repair, because they never let us repair anything. So it was already having trouble, and then they just sealed the deal with the tubes. So the pumps pump the water out, but it's right in a little pit right behind the lighthouse. Actually, it's a big pit now, because it keeps getting bigger, because it can't go anywhere. Yeah. But it gets stuck there because of the tubes. And we've for 4 years, again, I've been trying to get permission to address that problem. So what's happened is the water gets pumped out, it sits right there and seeps right back in. So if we have, flood tides for a little while or bad rain for a while, it's just the water, tide gets so high, and it takes a while for it to dry back out again. And that creates way too much moisture on the inside of the building. And we're dealing with that now. I should seriously begin to I should have a while ago, actually, some of the artifacts and the antiques out of here, because it's just too wet. The wall on the other side of the room runs with water at times. I come in with towels to dry it. Yeah.
I don't mean this as any kind of insult to anybody, but as soon as we walked in, I could smell.
It smells like the bay.
Yeah. But coming in from outside, I smelled in the building. Yeah.
Especially we entered into the kitchen, and the kitchen is the farthest from the pump, so it's really hard in that section.
Yeah. You've just done a great job in here. I just arrived just before we started talking, so I haven't seen everything yet, and I haven't taken pictures of the lighthouse, but everything looks so nice.
Oh, thanks.
You guys have worked so hard on this.
The stuff we can actually do without, begging for permission. We've had incredible support. I mean, it's just an amazing story of community in action, just teamwork in action and success because of it.
Yeah.
But then there's the areas where they stop us, and that it's like the tale of two, it's completely conflict.
The best
no
of times.
parking, no, they won't let us do that. It can't fix the grounds, and it's just crazy.
Let's talk about happier things.
Okay.
First of all, I was reading, I was just in the gift shop. You have a cottage next door here. That's where the gift shop is. I think there were some improvements there. Is that right?
Yeah, we needed a new roof, and this is another example of the community in action. Mm-hmm. We needed a new roof, and seriously needed to start to leak. So we was like, whoa. So I on Facebook, I didn't really know. My husband had been in construction. We always do everything ourselves, so I didn't know a roofer to call, and he was still working full time, so we needed a roofer. So I shot out on Facebook that can anybody recommend a good roofer? I need a couple of prices on putting in a new roof pretty quickly on the cottage because it's leaking. Well, it was really quick. Quickly, I got a response. From a company. They said, we'll do it, just you purchase the materials. Basically, you purchase the roof, we'll put it on. I was like, wow. So I thought, that's really cool. Yeah. Well, I had to, of course, get permission from the DEP to find out what I needed to do. I thought it fell under maintenance, so I didn't think I'd need a ton. And the cottage is not a historic building. It's an old building. They moved here, but has no significance. So I knew I didn't have to go through any historic any permission with there. So anyway, I got permission from the DEP. They gave it pretty quickly, which was surprising. And I contacted the company. I said, yes, thank you. We will definitely take you up on this. And we picked out the roof. And within a couple of days, they called back and they said that they would put it on at their full expense. So we got, and they came within, like a week later, it was done. Like from the beginning of my little plea on Facebook for just roofers' names to the completion was only a couple of weeks. It was amazing. Wow. Of course, then again, the DEP came back with, they went, we didn't really mean that you had full permission. You do need a permit.
Oh, jeez.
But thankfully, the township rescued us, and they said, well, quick, give them a permit. They changed their mind, and they said, oh, no, you don't have permission. Yeah. But it all worked out. The roof was on already, so it was all good.
Yeah.
But that was so encouraging for us. Not only did we get a new roof, which is a huge praise, but so encouraging that we just, actually we had other offers of people that were willing to help and do that. But the fact that one came literally and they paid for the whole thing, materials included, and did it so quickly and well.
You need victories.
We do, and that was so encouraging. And it ended up, front page of the newspaper, just everybody got so excited about it to see something good happen for a change. So.
Yeah. So remind me, is the lighthouse open all year?
It is open all year. We back off a little bit and we're open every first and third weekends rather than every weekend. Okay. But starting in May, so from now on through December, we're open every weekend, both Saturday and Sunday from 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully be able to add, my husband has since retired, so we could maybe do some weekday hours soon, I'm hoping, anyway.
So this is the 175th birthday year of the lighthouse, which that's extremely significant. Remind me, is this the second oldest lighthouse in New Jersey?
Correct, second oldest. Sandy Hook is the only one older.
Yeah, right, which is the oldest lighthouse tower in the country, so that beats everybody.
Tough to beat. Predates the country.
So do you have anything... I know you talked about how it's tough to plan ahead at this point. Do you at least tentatively have something planned for the anniversary?
Of course, we can't wait to celebrate. We want to. It was September 10th was the first time it was turned on, activated originally, but that unfortunately doesn't fall on a weekend, so it's the following weekend. We really want to have a big celebration. Invite all the politicians who've been so incredibly supportive and of course, I'm way behind planning it because been so crazy busy trying to jump through all the DEP hoops and frustrated with, not knowing how to plan and what to tell everybody. And unfortunately, that takes like 3 or 4 phone calls and contacts more than usual because I'm back and forth trying to explain what's going on and why I can't say yes. And are for sure, and you still want to do that if it's a maybe, that kind. But anyway, we have a lot of exciting, hopefully we'll have music and just a giant community celebration, and invite everybody who's willing to come celebrate with us.
Good. I hope you have an amazing, huge celebration.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Now, everybody, this museum or lighthouse is staffed by volunteers, right?
All volunteer.
All volunteers, yeah. That's what I thought. So anything else planned? And again, I know it's tricky at this point.
It's we still have our calendar. We pretty much have a set calendar at this point. With we don't do a lot over the summer because the bugs tend to take over in the area. We really are in a very natural place. We sit in the middle of the marsh, so we stay open inside, but we don't do any outside events because it's just it's just kind of asking for bug bites. But starting in September, there'll be the Butterfly Festival. Now, well, the extra celebration because of the 175th, but
right.
And then we have the Butterfly Festival, which is the third weekend in September, and that's always fun. Again, that's a kind of a combination of celebrating history and educating about the history of the area and the lighthouse, and also about the East Point is part of just like Cape May, it's part of the monarch butterfly migration route. Yeah. So we try to educate about native plants that are important for all the pollinators, including and also for the butterfly. And the butterflies themselves and the amazing journey that they make. So that's then. And then, of course, we participate in the Lighthouse Challenge, which is always a big deal.
In October.
Right. And then November, we're hoping, this is a tentative one. We haven't done it before, but a Native American festival. There's a lot of Native American history in this area. Okay. And there's a tribe nearby, and we're trying to work at like a small powwow here. We don't have big grounds. So that might or may not work. We'll see how it's going. And then we do at Christmas, we decorate the lighthouse inside and out. And where we're sitting right now ends up being a big train platform, Victorian village with a train going around it. And what makes it kind of interesting for a lighthouse is that there's a model of every one of the New Jersey lighthouses on it. Oh, wow. It actually got us into Lighthouse Digest the first year we did it. We've done it 2 years now. This will be our third year. Yeah. But it's really neat. It's right here. The whole back wall is the New Jersey lighthouses, including some that are out on the bay, which are kind of hard to find. So it's kind of neat. And all the kids, any kids, big ones too, can come and run the train. So it makes it one more thing. Plus, we have Santa Claus come and see the kids. Oh, wow. So
I would love to come for that.
We keep it decorated all the way through January because when everyone's so busy. Yeah. And for those who can't make it, during the holiday season, they can come and see it and get an idea what Christmas was like back in the day. Yeah.
So. I wish I wasn't a few states away. I would definitely come for that.
And the other thing that we do and the reason we do things like Santa Claus and even the train village is because we really try to focus on children and encouraging children to be able to come to a historic site. It's kind of a foot in the door for learning it, getting them to be interested in history. Yep. That's why we make it a hands-on museum. It's not a behind glass doors place. The kids can come in and touch stuff. They don't get hollered at the whole time. Don't touch that. Don't move. No. And they can sit in a chair. They can play with the checkers. They can, So we do the same thing with Christmas with Santa Claus. It's we want the kids to grow up and say, every year I went there to see Santa Claus.
Yeah, you're creating memories.
Right, and it gives them a connection to the place too. Right, it's their lighthouse.
Yeah, that kind of stuff always makes me think of. There was a popular historian in New England, Edward Grove Snow, and his wife. After he had passed away, I interviewed his wife, and she talked about how he loved to talk to children about maritime history and stuff. And she said he made it fun the way it was.
Yeah, that's. If we don't get that generation, we might as well go home.
Right, but she said they were having fun, but they were. How did she put it? They were having fun, and they didn't realize it, but they were learning history
at the same time. Yeah, so, exactly.
I wouldn't say that you're tricking them into learning history, but making it fun is so important. Right. Yeah. So I have one final question for you for bonus points. Okay.
All right.
The question is: I know it's been rough in many ways in the recent years, the last few years, but what is it about preserving East Point Lighthouse that keeps you going?
Ooh. Well, I think part of it, for me, is that and this is probably the biggest part. There's a lot of reasons, but I'm going to come back to one that might surprise you a little bit. It's because, as important as history is and all that stuff, community, to me, is actually more important than all of that, as important as the other things are. Mm-hmm. And this building is the physical kind of representation, or the physical evidence, we'll use that word, of the community. Mm-hmm. You know, you can look at this building and everybody, there's ashes that have been spread out here. Mm-hmm. There are weddings that have mm-hmm. taken place here. You know, everybody in the area sort of has a special little, that's where that's where I proposed, or that's where my husband proposed to me, or and then the other people, I run into people and they go, my grandfather, he was a keeper there, or my aunt, she was part of the restoration of this or that, or, you know, they did this, or the other thing. Mm-hmm. And it just, I think that this building and the history that it holds all the way through the generations, not just the way back ones, you know, they're important, extremely important. Mm-hmm. But I think even the more recent stuff is important. So to me, it's the community aspect of this place that is the most important. And so I stay even on the rough days because I believe in people. I believe in community and mm-hmm. the importance of that and protecting that. Yeah. Protecting places like this where the community can gather. Maybe that's why we focus so much on like Santa Claus and things mm-hmm. like that, because we want people to come here and gather. Yeah. And experience history. Part of it is tricking people into enjoying history, but it's not all that. You know, it really is a community place.
I applaud that, and I think there's a lot of places where lighthouses are the centerpiece.
It is. It's like the steeple of the church, or in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
It's the same. And that's true too. The church is also the center of community. It's not. Right. This isn't the only part of the community, but.
Yeah. Another thing that you kind of brought to mind, I was thinking about Linda Greenlaw, who's a author. And you know, she used to be a swordfish boat captain out of Gloucester. She was portrayed in the movie The Perfect Storm.
I was going to say, is that The Perfect Storm?
Yeah, she's written nonfiction books and novels. But in a book, one of her books, a nonfiction book, I think it was Lobster Chronicles, she said she grew up in the Isle of Howe Lighthouse in Maine.
I didn't know that.
And she said people would ask her a lot if it was haunted. And she would say, I feel it's spirited. It's a spirited place. Mm-hmm. It has so much meaning for people.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. It's touching on the same thing. This place represents a lot of people's lives mm-hmm. and the heart of the community, I guess, in a way. You know, it's really
it's kind of at the heart and soul of the community. Right?
People come here to think and to pray, and they're having a rough day, they come down here. You know, part of it's the beach and the water. There's just something healing about that. Yeah. But we did. My husband and I are not from the area originally. We've lived here over 20 years, so it's really our home. But we saw a change in the. You know, when we first got involved, it was pretty dilapidated and horrible. You know, and it needed. You could see the potential, but it certainly needed some attention. And we saw a change in the community, in the pride, when they finally saw things happening for the good, and the area was in the news for when it was restored, and it was for a positive reason, and we just saw hope back in people's eyes. Yeah. So I guess that's it. That's the community that I mean. That's the spirit of the whole thing. So she touched on it with the whole spirit thing. Yeah. Well,
I agree with everything you're saying, and I applaud what you've done here. I mean, the restoration and everything is fantastic, but also your perseverance. So I commend you hugely on everything here. So Nancy Patterson, thank you so much for hosting me here today. And it's really nice to meet you in person after interviewing you from afar a few years ago. Thank you for the update. I wish you all the luck in the world because you deserve it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks.
To learn more about East Point Lighthouse, go to eastpointlight.com. There's a donation button on the front page if you'd like to help them out. Our third and last interview today was recorded on the last day of my 12-day journey. Carol Connor of Noank, Connecticut, first contacted me last July. She told me that she enjoys this podcast, and she also told me that she lives in a lighthouse that she and her husband built 38 years ago. I've been in Noank many times over the years, and I always wondered about the building, which has a short tower and an authentic-looking lighthouse lantern room on top. Carol invited me into her home, and the timing worked out on my trip. So let's listen to my conversation with Carol Connor now. I'm here this morning with Carol Connor in a beautiful home in Noank, which is part of the city of Groton in Connecticut. And she has kindly invited me into her beautiful home, which is also a lighthouse. And we're going to talk a bit about that today. Thanks for inviting me into your home, and thanks for being on the podcast, Carol.
Well, you're welcome. Happy to have you here.
What a view. I'm just sitting here at your, would you consider this the dining room table or the? Kitchen table. This is the kitchen table, yeah, out of the view here, which is incredible. And you can see 4 lighthouses from your home here.
That's right.
Incredible view all the way to Watch Hill.
3-state view.
Right. You got lighthouses in 3 states here.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have Watch Hill in Rhode Island, and then we have in New York, we have Fisher's Island, which has Race Rock, and off that, North Dumpling.
Yeah. And
Lighthouse.
Yeah, and just down the street here, which you can't see from here, is Morgan Point Lighthouse here.
Right.
Here in Noank. And it is pronounced Noank, of course. My GPS was telling me Nonk on the way here, but I know it's Noank. So I first saw your home, I think it was either late 1980s or early 1990s. My wife and I were trying to figure out how do you get a view of Morgan Point Lighthouse at the end of the point here. You really can't get a good view unless you're in a boat or unless you have permission to go on the private property.
Right.
But so we're driving along here. Across the street is Abbott's Lobster. Some listeners might be familiar with that. Very popular lobster place. Been here a long time. So we're driving along past Abbott's, and I see this lantern that looks like an authentic lantern on top of this house. And I'm thinking, I said to my wife, that's not Morgan Point Lighthouse. I don't think that's what it looks like. And I'm trying to figure out, but what is that? It looks like an official lighthouse. And of course, it's your home. So could you tell a little bit of the story of how you came to build a lighthouse?
Sure. Well, my husband and I always liked lighthouses and did a lot of sailing and always, obviously, gone by lighthouses. Mm-hmm. And traveling all over the United States or Europe, it always was fascinating to us to look at and see another lighthouse. Mm-hmm. So we bought this house. It needed to be made larger, and everybody wanted a view, so we had to go up. So we thought, let's build a lighthouse. And a friend of ours was in the Coast Guard, and we said, we need plans for a lighthouse. And he said, I can get you those. So we were able to use plans from the Coast Guard. So it's an authentic replica of a lighthouse.
Yeah, the lantern appears to be the standard 4th order, lantern made for a 4th order light, right? Probably made for the standard plans for that.
Well, we just happen to have that lantern. Yeah, my husband.
Well, by lantern I mean the lantern house, the lantern room, the whole big structure.
Yeah, but the light, we happen to have that.
Yeah.
That light, and we just hung it up there, and it's automatic, goes on every night.
Okay. Yeah. It's not considered a private aid to navigation, is it?
No, it isn't. We're not on the chart.
So it's probably you probably can't have too bright a light. So
it was bright enough so our kids could see it coming back, from late at night out in the boat. Yeah.
So sort of an unofficial private aid to navigation.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's great. The view is phenomenal from the lantern room up there. As we were saying, you see all these lighthouses and a number of islands out here, Fisher's Island, of course, and some of the smaller islands. So absolutely fantastic. So the house, according to the plaque outside, 1865, right?
Right.
Originally, was the first resident Silas Spicer?
I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was at the lighthouse at Morgan Point, which was different than what it is today. It was only 25 feet high. It was too small, they said. Mm-hmm. So he moved with his family then, I don't know, 65, 60. No, this house was built in 65, so he moved soon after that here. And then they rebuilt the Morgan Point Lighthouse, and that was finished in 68.
Yeah. But he didn't. That was the end of his lighthouse keeping career
Right,
when he moved
right.
into here.
And that also
So
gave us an excuse to build a lighthouse because the lighthouse keeper actually lived here.
it has some history, very
Yes.
much related to that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And you showed me an album on the history of this house, and there's a picture of Keeper Spicer, or was he referred to as Captain Spicer, maybe?
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With his son, and his son actually drew a sketch of that first lighthouse at Morgan Point, which is really interesting to see.
Right.
Yeah.
I have pictures I haven't shown you yet of when we were actually building the lighthouse, and a friend of ours built it. He was a boat builder. And he said, sure, I can do that for you. Yeah, so he took those Coast Guard plans and built the lighthouse. He had never done that before, but we trusted him, and
Yeah.
he put it together and put it up there. And then we decided we needed a flagpole up there.
Okay.
So we had another friend of the Coast Guard said, oh, we're replacing the FJ masts on the boats at the Coast Guard, so I've got all these extra masts, so I'll give you two. So we were on our second one. We lost one in a hurricane. And so there's a flag up most of the time. If I know it's going to blow over 25, I take it down.
This must be quite a place to be in a hurricane or a
yes,
big
it
storm.
is. We've had some hurricanes here, and we've always had a couple friends would like to come over and watch it from here.
Yeah. Of course, it's before your time, but the hurricane of 38 was just devastating around here.
Horrible here, horrible. Yeah, and it was a surprise. They had no notice.
Right. Yeah. Do you ever get people coming up to the door and knocking on the door and saying, what lighthouse is this?
A
or that
little
type
bit.
of thing?
Once in a while. Not often. No.
Or looking for the passport stamp?
Yeah, right. Most of them are just, they stop and take pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
you
it
see
must
that
be a real lighthouse.
in the summertime.
Yeah. So what is that lantern room made of, the material? I'm just trying to figure that out.
I don't know.
I mean, typically those would have been cast iron, but I don't think
I
that's
think it's
cast iron.
fiberglass.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense, yeah. But it looks just like the
Yeah.
actual
Right.
typical fourth order lantern, as I said. Well, I am so thrilled to be here after these years. Like I said, early on when I saw this place, I thought that's got to be a real lighthouse. But
Yeah.
I couldn't quite figure it out. And looking at all the sources about Connecticut lighthouses.
Yeah.
No,
right.
Morgan Point's down the
Point.
street. So.
Right, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, if people, I'm sure there's listeners who know about Abbott's Lobster. That's kind of a local institution
Right.
here. Been here how many years? Probably several decades, I think. Yeah.
Oh, no, more than, I think they had a 75th
Oh, did they?
anniversary. Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, they've been here forever.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Even though lobsters are almost completely gone from Long Island Sound,
It's
right?
terrible.
And
There
Fisher's
are
Island
none.
Sound.
There
Yeah.
are none. No, it's great
Yeah.
for the sailors.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to worry about catching a lobster pot on our keel or a rudder. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very few now.
Lobsters are gradually moving north,
Right.
but I hear the oystering is still good through.
Oystering is very good. The oyster boat is probably the only day it doesn't go out is Sunday. He's out there every day.
Yeah. That's
They're
good
called
to-
Mystic oysters,
Okay.
but they're in Noank.
Okay.
They started out as Noank oysters, but nobody could pronounce Noank, and
Noank, yeah.
Yes, and Mystic already has a name.
Right.
People
a well-known
have heard of
name. Yeah.
Mystic, Connecticut.
Mystic
so
River,
anyway,
too.
so they switched it to Mystic. Yeah, a few
Mystic
years ago.
Pizza.
Mystic Pizza. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that was filmed here in Noank.
Was it? Yeah. Mystic being another village of the city of Groton, right?
Yes, half of it. Half's in Groton and half's in Stonington. If you
No,
go,
I never realized that. Okay.
go over the bridge in Mystic, the
Uh-huh.
Route 1 bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the other side, you're now in Stonington. Yeah.
Never knew that.
Very confusing to
Learn
people.
something every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you again so much for contacting me and saying you own this beautiful place. Do you
Yeah.
want to come over sometime? And it worked out that I'm on my way back from my 12-day trip down the coast all the way to Maryland. This just worked out
Yeah.
perfectly.
Well,
And this
I loved having you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Share my home.
My thanks again to today's guests, Nancy Patterson, Carol Connor, and Kevin Ferias. A reminder to visit uslhs.org to learn about the Passport Program, tours, the research catalog, and all the things the U.S. Lighthouse Society offers. If you love lighthouses and you enjoy this podcast, please consider a membership or a donation. My thanks also to all the people at lighthouses and museums who hosted me during my recent trip. Everyone was incredibly friendly and generous with their time, and it made for a very enjoyable trip. We will be back next week with a new episode. For now, to all our regular listeners and our new ones, thank you so much for listening, and keep a good light.
Let it shine, let it shine.